my first question will be, does everybody is aware of the Sweeney scandal? Does everybody knows about the story? Please give me a sign if you don't ever heard about the scandal. So, okay. So let's make a very, very short deep dive into this so-called scandal which we have. We're talking about American Eagle. It's an American clothing company, quite famous, and they launched, together with this model called Sydney Sweeney, a new campaign. Well, the main take of the campaign is Sydney Sweeney Has Great Jeans. And Sydney Sweeney was formerly known as being an actor for mainly adult films. And, well, what has happened? Sydney Sweeney's new ad for American Eagle features in her classical American outfit saying, "Jeans are passed down, my jeans are blue." It ends with the tagline, "Sydney Sweeney has great jeans." So you could also read it by using the biological terms of genes. What has happened? In the days to come, after, well, the initial campaign started, well, there had been, from Fox News to CNN, some kind of outrage. People said, well, is this a true and, well-orientated advertisement, or do we have a problem? Some found it funny, some felt offended. So in the end, what has happened, there had been a quite quarrel about how to, well, interpret these ads. The internet accused the campaign of promoting white beauty ideals, referencing eugenics, and sexualizing her for male audiences. This is a bit the baseline we're talking about. And if we are now talking about this issue, well, American Eagle is just the top of the iceberg, because we will see, and I will fail in explaining the whole issue within 20 minutes, but I will try to explain what is the real dynamics, or what is the real dynamic which we find out of this kind of campaigns. Well, the idea is, if we talk about brands today, then they are often connected to the idea of having a kind of purpose. Well, the question is there just one purpose, or are we talking about several purposes? First of all, let's have a clear look to the subject we are talking about. We are talking about brands. And if you consider being a brand just a logo or a campaign, well, this might be the surface. But it's not the real dynamics which we have, because normally brands are the alliances of our time. You could explain it now by using classical German sociological theories by Ferdinand Tönnies and so on, but I have no time to explain it. I'm just trying to give it an insight. Well, the point is, creating alliances is not new. For a long time, we had classical alliances. We talked about family as an alliance. We talked about religion, which was the most important thing, about nations, or maybe even about classes and distinction. Well, having this in mind, the question now I'm asking you is, what is the purpose? What is the sense of a brand? Well, asking you this, there might be some, different answers. One could be the purpose of a brand and its social responsibility is to increase its profits. You may know Milton Friedman, a neoconservative economist who was very famous. But I can see on your faces that you would feel irritated by saying, okay, you just make money. It's profit, baby. It's not that simple. Do anybody of you still know this book here? Please give me a sign. Who has ever heard about this book? No logo. Just the older ones. This is, sorry. Sorry. This is the most sold brand book ever. More than 1 million copies sold. Translated in 35 languages. 25 years ago, it was the big hype. Now nobody knows about it. What is said inside? Well, it has some pages, but I'm trying to minimize it in one sentence. It says brands are bad. When brands are manipulating you, brands are doing, complicated work in order to make you buy stuff that you don't need, which is produced in a bad manner. Well, now our perception of brands has changed. We're talking about the belief-driven buyer, you. Brands become active players in societies. They actively work towards improvement or change of economic or political conditions. That's an ethical question. But even this ethical question is driven by some economic thoughts. This is, Jamie Dimon. He is the CEO of the biggest investment bank in the US. And he's kneeling. Why is he kneeling? You maybe remember the Black Lives Matter movement some years ago, 5 years, 6 years ago. Well, he's kneeling in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. This has changed. Please keep in mind what Milton Friedman said just 40 years ago, 50 years ago. There seems to be a fundamental change. And this change might be also fueled by the fact that Jim Stengel, who was the former CMO, marketing officer of Unilever, said, brands who are keeping in mind also their social responsibility, they perform better. Look at these. These are two different graphs, and the green one is by companies who have some kind of active role in society. So it's also an economic question of doing good. Well, this might be the case, but what do we see if we're going to analyze branding or advertisements nowadays? Well, you can see three different phases. I brought you some advertisements from Volkswagen. In the 17th, advertising was mainly, and I'm talking typically about the way we are performing, about performances, about things you can buy, hard facts. First phase. Second phase, because we say, products seem to be quite the same, we have to add a value to the brand, we need an added value. So we're talking about emotions. Branding is dealing with emotions. And then we have the third phase, all Volkswagen, who say, okay, emotion isn't sufficient anymore. We now should take into responsibility here, for example, the World Championship for women in football. Three phases, which we can work out how to convince the public. Well, purpose is something which has been the great hype in marketing and advertisement throughout the last 15 years. By the way, purpose marketing started in 2008, 2009. And the first one who did it were the banks, because they had a real image problem after the 2008 bank crash, nearly. And they had to change their image. So they used and they tried to find solution to make or to work out a better way of being presented in public. Well, we have different kind of using the purpose in advertisement. So you could buy by Ben & Jerry's some ice cream, Change the World, which is featured by Colin Kaepernick, the one who kneeled and who refused to stand up when the national anthem was played, and Donald Trump was very angry about it. Well, you know about the way of colorizing just some days before Christopher Street Day your logo, and adding a standing with Ukraine. And you can eat pizza and be for tolerance. And you can also go just 200 meters on the right side, not on the right side. And you're buying your meat, but at the same time you are against Nazis. Well, you have some kind of topics and purpose which seem to be, well, the hot stuff. We're talking about solidarity, diversity, participation, LGBTQ issues. And to be clear, criticizing purpose is not criticizing these issues. This is very important. It's about asking, is it real? Do they mean it in a real way? Is it a real change? Or is it just a marketing hype? Well, some of you will know him, the older one, Roger Willemsen, who was a philosopher. He had a very famous talk show in German television in the year 2000. And he said, he died very, very young, the moment the world lost its meaning, advertising discovered salvation. Well, let's make a reality check. If you look at these kind of purpose marketing, you have the idea or the image, or at least the impression that the world is changing. Well, it's just an impression. The number of cars in Germany is rising. Well, the share of fair clothing is 0.3%. Who of you is owning an iPhone? Do you think that this iPhone is built in a fair and ecological, great manner in Asia? And we buy it nevertheless. At a certain point, with the impression that it's crazy to find meat in a supermarket because all the shows on TV, all the articles in the media would ask you to cook vegetarian food. Well, look, it's 1.58% of the German public who is really vegan. And 8% say they are vegetarians. We are just talking about 7% of organically produced food in Germany. It's a minority. What do you think? Burger King and McDonald's are trying to convince you to buy vegan food or vegan products. How many, what is the percentage of vegan food sold by Burger King and McDonald's? What do you think? What is the number? They made a whole campaign. What do you think? 2%. Who thinks it's more than 2%? Okay. It's 4%. After doing campaigns and campaigns for 8 years, trying to convince you to buy vegan. It's incredible. Well, into this world steps purpose. Customers are longing for a why, says the brand. Customers want to buy a soft drink that reflects their values, says the brand. Customers are demanding that soft drink steps up and fill the political void, says the brand. The truth is more like Mad Men meme with Ron Draper in the elevator, who says, I don't think about you, the brand, at all. I still got 5 minutes. But I maybe get 7 because I have to explain American Eagle first. I brought you the statistics. On the left side, you see all these purpose-orientated brands, which we know. Body Shop, Dove, Patagonia. And people will ask, do you know about their purpose? And this is a survey which was done by Ehrenberg Bass this year. And just the Body Shop, just 30% of the population knows about Body Shop's activity for equal rights or against animal testing. Even Patagonia, just 11% know that Patagonia is standing for safety, environment, and climate. After all these decades of marketing. It's incredible to think about this solution. So I want to quote some iconic figure in advertisement, who said long time ago, nobody reads advertising. You could also say watches advertising. People read what interests them, and sometimes it's an ad. Well, why does it happen? Because we are talking about trustworthiness. If I'm going to use the rainbow flag, but I'm just using it where it makes no problem, well, then it's easy. But you see here, they are not trying to use this flag or this rainbow flag in cultures where it might be more problematic. Everyone is talking about Patagonia, and in every marketing session, you will talk about Patagonia and this advertisement, which is very special. Don't buy this jacket. Well, if you look a bit closer, you will see what has happened when they made this advertisement in 2011. The sales rose, they increased. So the intention has nothing to do with the way they were trying to promote it. And they repeated this kind of action just 7 years later. What should you think about a company who's doing, well, the opposite of what it is saying? Well, this is the idea. Now you have somebody who's very critical. It's Vivek Ramaswamy, who wrote a book which is called Woke Incorporated. He's on the right side of the spectrum. But what is interesting about him, and he was running for president, but he says something very important. Corporations used to try to convince you that buying their stuff would make you cool. Now they tell you buying it will make you good. The difference is subtle but important. What's cool is entirely subjective, but what's good not. Nothing is allowed to be ordinary anymore. You see a lot of criticism about purpose marketing from the left to the right. There are different kinds of interactions about trying to criticize it. But the question which I want to ask here now is the following. Why do we advertise the way we advertise? Who is creating advertisements and who is Adland? Well, I got 1 minute, 3 minutes maybe. Look, it is very critical to find statistics and surveys about the people working in Adland. Well, you have very old statistics, and you will never find young people in the creation in advertisement. Does not exist. Secondly, you have normally well-educated, cosmopolitan people who do media and advertisement. So it's very different. And what we did, together with my colleague, we asked people working in Adland about their preferences in a political view. And we have a lot of analysis on media and political views of journalists, but there is no survey about the way Adlanders view political issues. I want to show you, it's a bit older and it's not representative. We asked 150 persons in advertisement, what would they vote for? Well, the question is quite simple. You have not a real spectrum about things going on in reality. It is something which has quite a shift in some political dimensions. So, let me come to the end. Because I started with Sydney Sweeney. Don't forget. There was no problem in promoting some purpose views as long as it were in the favor of the mainstream in Adland. But what would he do if purpose might be interpreted in another way? Some of you may know this burger company, Chick-fil-A in America. What do? They close their shops on Sundays, even in the biggest shopping malls. And everybody knows Sunday shopping mall, there's a huge crowd going on in America. But they close it because it's their belief you should be with your family, you should go to church, whatever. So it's also purpose. And so we have on the other side now of the spectrum also people promoting their purpose of life. You have this kind of Great Patriot Boycott book, which was endorsed by Donald J. Trump. Sydney Sweeney is just the other side of the medal. And Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle, they had a very big run on their products concerning the way it was seen. The stocks, they rised. And so in the end, if you start giving brands a political purpose, then you have to be aware that capitalistic markets tend to go where target groups might be. But we addressed just 50% of the population until now. So it was a matter of time that the other 50% would be addressed as well. And so, do we want big companies to use their budgets for political influences in every political direction? We were silent as long as the direction was in our favor, but now we opened the box of the Pandora, and American Eagle is just a logic to market rules. That's what I wanted to say, and that's what I wanted to present you, and I hope we are having a great and maybe also controversial discussion. Thank you very much.